My sister-in-law Vanessa said the sentence that ended her marriage across the Thanksgiving dinner table at my mother's house in Charleston, South Carolina, at 5:47 in the evening on Thursday, November 28th, exactly 43 seconds before the doorbell rang. She said it while I was passing the green bean casserole to my brother Marcus. She said, in the specific loud voice a woman uses when she has been rehearsing something for 4 days. You know, Grace, I've been reading some things online, and I think it's time we all stopped pretending. You're not really a soldier. You're an admin. Everybody knows it. You just come home in that uniform because it makes people feel bad for you. The table went silent. My 8-year-old nephew Owen, Marcus and Vanessa's son, dropped his fork. My mother, 72 years old, in the specific silence she used when she was choosing between weeping and calling a lawyer, set down her serving spoon. I did not, at that moment, respond. I did not respond because I could not think of a response that would not, in one way or another, ruin my mother's Thanksgiving. At exactly 5:48 p.m., 43 seconds after Vanessa Whitmore Cole had finished the specific sentence she had rehearsed for 4 days, the front doorbell of my mother's house on Rutledge Avenue rang. I stood up to answer it. I opened the door. Lieutenant General Robert Hayes, United States Army, was standing on my mother's front porch in Army service dress, holding a bottle of wine and a small pumpkin pie in a Tupperware container. He said, "Captain Whitmore, am I early?" Vanessa Whitmore Cole, sitting at my mother's Thanksgiving table 40 feet away, went pale. The family. My name is Grace Whitmore. I am 35 years old. I am a captain in the United States Army, currently assigned to a Joint Intelligence Support Command at Fort Meade, Maryland. I have served in the Army for 13 years. I have deployed twice, once to Iraq in 2018, and once to a location I cannot name in 2022. I have received, over the course of my career, 3 service commendations, 1 Bronze Star, and 1 specific classified commendation that does not appear on any documentation my family will ever see. I want to tell you about my family before I tell you what happened at Thanksgiving dinner. I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, in a small 3-bedroom house on Rutledge Avenue, in the neighborhood that Charleston natives call the North Central. My father was a plumber. My mother was a school administrator. I have 1 sibling, my older brother Marcus, who is 38, who works as a mid-level accountant at a firm in Mount Pleasant, and who has been married to Vanessa Whitmore Cole for 11 years. My father died in 2019 of pancreatic cancer. He was 63. He had, 3 months before he died, held my hand at his hospital bedside and said the specific sentence that has shaped every one of the 14 years I have worn my uniform. He said, "Grace, the country will always take care of you if you take care of it. Do the work." I have, in the 6 years since he died, done the work. My mother, Eleanor Whitmore, is 72. She lives alone in the house on Rutledge Avenue. She still attends church at the small Episcopal parish 2 blocks from her house. She still bakes the specific pecan pie every Thanksgiving that my father asked for every year of their 40-year marriage. She still, in every possible way, treats me and my brother as the 2 children she raised. My brother Marcus is a good man. I want to be honest about this before I describe what happened at Thanksgiving. Marcus is a genuinely good man. He is soft-spoken, he is careful with money, he is the specific kind of older brother who, when I was 12 and was crying in my bedroom because a boy at school had made fun of my hair, sat on the edge of my bed and did not leave until I stopped crying. He is not, in his fundamental character, a man who would ever say what his wife said at the dinner table on Thanksgiving evening. He is, however, a man who married Vanessa Whitmore Cole. I need to tell you about Vanessa, because she is the entire second half of this story. Vanessa is 39 years old. She grew up in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, in a family that owned 2 Buick dealerships, and had, per the specific Charleston social taxonomy that Vanessa's mother Patricia Whitmore had used at every family event for the last 11 years, arrived socially in the 1980s. Vanessa met my brother Marcus in 2013, when he was a junior accountant at a firm that was auditing her father's dealerships. They married in 2014. They had my nephew Owen in 2016. Vanessa and I have never, in the 11 years she has been married to my brother, been friends. I want to be honest about why. Vanessa is, per the specific dynamic she and her mother Patricia established at the second family Thanksgiving I ever attended with them, a woman who requires that she be the most impressive woman in any room she is in. I am, whether I want to be or not, a captain in the United States Army. That has been, per what Marcus told me in a difficult phone conversation in 2020, a problem for Vanessa from approximately the third year of their marriage. By 2019, the year my father died, Vanessa had begun making small comments about my career at family gatherings. She had said at Easter dinner in April of 2019 that she didn't understand why anyone would want to be in the military. She had said, at my father's funeral reception in October, that at least Grace would have a stable job to fall back on. She had said, at Christmas dinner in December, that she had a cousin who was in the National Guard, so she basically understood what Grace did. I had, for 4 years, let these comments pass. I want to be honest about why I let them pass. I let them pass because my mother was grieving my father, and my brother was trying to hold his marriage together, and my 8-year-old nephew Owen was the specific child in the family who called me Aunt Grace, the soldier, and who wore the small army t-shirt I had sent him from Iraq every single time he came to Charleston for a family event. I let them pass because I did not want to be the person who made every Whitmore family gathering a fight. I let them pass because I was, per every fitness report of my Army career, a person whose commanding officers described as exceptionally disciplined in interpersonal conflict. That discipline had, per my own honest assessment, become a form of cowardice at family gatherings. Vanessa took my discipline as permission. By September of this year, 3 months before the Thanksgiving I am about to describe, Vanessa had begun, per what I would later learn from Owen himself, telling my nephew that Aunt Grace doesn't really fight in the Army. She just works in an office. She just wears the uniform to look important. My nephew Owen, at 8 years old, had, per what my mother later told me, asked my mother in her kitchen in August whether Aunt Grace actually was a real soldier or just pretend. My mother had, per her own account, told Owen the specific truth. Owen, sweetheart, your Aunt Grace is one of the most important intelligence officers the United States Army has right now. Most of what she does, she can't tell any of us about, but everyone she works for thinks she is very good at it. And when you're older, you'll understand what that means. Owen, per my mother, had said, Grandma, Aunt Vanessa says Aunt Grace is fake. My mother had, per her own account, said, Owen, Aunt Vanessa is wrong, and I would like you to remember, when you are older, that your grandmother told you exactly that. Owen had, per my mother, nodded. That was August. Thanksgiving was 3 months later. The dinner table. I want to walk you through the 2 hours before Vanessa Whitmore Cole said the sentence that ended her marriage, because they will explain why what happened next was inevitable. I arrived at my mother's house on Rutledge Avenue at 3:47 p.m. on Thursday, November 28th. I was in civilian clothes, a black turtleneck and dark gray slacks. I had, per the specific practice I had developed over 5 years of family events, decided not to wear my uniform. I did not want to give Vanessa the satisfaction of a target. Marcus and Vanessa arrived at 4:14 p.m. with Owen. Owen ran across the front lawn to hug me, before Vanessa had finished getting out of the passenger seat of Marcus's Ford Explorer. He was, at 8 years old, at the specific age where he had memorized my rank and my unit designation, and where he introduced me at his second grade show and tell as my aunt who is a captain in the United States Army. Vanessa's mother, Patricia Whitmore Cole, arrived at 4:22 p.m. Patricia was 68. She had, per my mother's specific description over the phone the previous evening, been coming for the whole day for the first time in 11 years. Patricia had, in the 11 years of Marcus and Vanessa's marriage, generally spent Thanksgiving at her own family's house in Mount Pleasant. This year, per Vanessa's specific request, per Marcus, per Owen, per my mother, Patricia had come to Charleston. I did not know, at 4:22 p.m., why. I would understand, at 5:47 p.m., that Patricia had been brought as a witness. We sat down to dinner at 5:15 p.m. My mother had set the table for 6, herself at the head, me on her right, Owen next to me, Vanessa across from me, Marcus next to Vanessa, and Patricia at the foot of the table opposite my mother. The table was the specific mahogany table my father had built in 1998 in our garage. The tablecloth was the one my grandmother had given my mother in 1976 as a wedding present. The plates were the china my mother had inherited from her own mother in 1993. My mother said grace at 5:17 p.m. She was, per her own tradition, brief. She said, "Thank you, Lord, for our health, our home, and our family. Thank you for the son and the daughter you have entrusted to me. Thank you for the grandson at this table, and thank you for the years of our marriage. Amen." She did not, in her grace, mention Vanessa's mother, Patricia. I noticed. Vanessa noticed. Patricia noticed. The dinner conversation for the first 32 minutes was, per what I could remember later, entirely normal. Owen talked about his second-grade class. Marcus asked me about work. I gave the specific general answers I always gave. I could not discuss the classified aspects of my assignment, but I could talk about the office culture at Fort Meade, and the weather in Maryland, and the small apartment I had rented in Odenton. Patricia, Vanessa's mother, did not speak for the first 32 minutes. At 5:47 p.m., I was passing the green bean casserole to my brother Marcus. Vanessa cleared her throat. She said, "You know, Grace, I've been reading some things online." I said, "About what, Vanessa?" She said, "About the Army. About what officers actually do. I think it's time we all stopped pretending." I set down the casserole dish. I said very quietly, "Vanessa, what are you saying?" She said, in the specific loud voice that carried across the dining room to the kitchen and back, "You're not really a soldier. You're an admin. Everybody knows it. You just come home in that uniform because it makes people feel bad for you." The table went silent. Owen, my 8-year-old nephew, dropped his fork onto his plate. The specific sound of a fork on china carried across the room. My mother, 72 years old, in the silence she used when she was choosing between weeping and calling a lawyer, set down her serving spoon. Marcus said, quietly. Vanessa said, "Marcus, it's fine. Grace is a grown woman. She can handle a conversation." Patricia, from the foot of the table, said her first words of the evening. She said, "I actually have to agree with Vanessa. My cousin's son is in the Marines. He does real work, he deploys, he fights, he risks his life, and when he comes home he doesn't parade around in his uniform expecting people to thank him. There's a difference between an actual service member and an office worker who wears a costume." The dining room went even more silent than it had been. My mother, per what she would later tell me, was, at that exact moment, approximately 2 seconds away from asking both Vanessa and Patricia to leave her house. I did not, in that moment, respond to either of them. I want to explain why. I did not respond because I was, at that exact moment, calculating in my head the specific timing of an arrangement I had made 3 weeks earlier. That arrangement was, per what I had not told anyone in my family, including my mother, that a specific person had accepted an invitation I had extended to him in the second week of November. That person was Lieutenant General Robert Hayes, United States Army, who had been my commanding officer during my 2022 deployment, and who was, at the time of Thanksgiving this year, the Deputy Commanding General of the Army's Intelligence and Security Command at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. General Hayes's wife Susan had died on August 3rd of this year, of a stroke, at the age of 59. They had not had children. General Hayes had, per what he had told me in a difficult phone conversation in September, been planning to spend his first Thanksgiving without Susan alone in his house in Fairfax County. I had, on November 4th, called him and invited him to spend Thanksgiving in Charleston with my mother. He had, on November 6th, accepted. He had told me he would arrive at approximately 6 p.m. He had told me he would drive the 482 miles from Fairfax County to Charleston himself, in his own personal car, in service dress uniform, out of respect for my mother. He was, at 5:48 p.m. on Thanksgiving evening, exactly 12 minutes early. I stood up from my mother's Thanksgiving table. I said, "Excuse me, I need to answer the door." Vanessa said, "Grace, we're in the middle of a conversation." I said, "Vanessa, we're going to finish this conversation, but first, I need to answer the door." I walked to the front hallway. I opened the door. Lieutenant General Robert Hayes was standing on my mother's front porch in Army service dress uniform. He was holding a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon and a small Tupperware container of pumpkin pie. He said, "Captain Whitmore, am I early?" I said, "General Hayes, you are exactly on time, sir." I turned to look back at the dining room. Vanessa Whitmore Cole had seen, through the sightline from the dining room to the front door, the 3 stars on General Hayes's shoulders. Her face had gone the specific color that faces go when a woman understands that the sentence she has just spoken in front of a Thanksgiving table has been overheard by someone whose presence she cannot explain. She did not, at that moment, speak. She would not, for the next 15 minutes, speak. The general at the table. I want to walk you through the next 22 minutes of Thanksgiving dinner, because they are the reason my brother's marriage ended. I walked General Hayes into my mother's dining room at 5:49 p.m. I said, "Mama, I want to introduce you to someone. This is Lieutenant General Robert Hayes, United States Army. He was my commanding officer during my 2022 deployment. He is currently the Deputy Commanding General of Army Intelligence and Security Command at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. His wife Susan passed in August. I invited him to spend Thanksgiving with our family this year. I did not tell you because I did not want you to worry about entertaining a general. General Hayes, this is my mother, Eleanor Whitmore. My mother, 72 years old, still holding a serving spoon, still in her Thanksgiving apron, stood up from her chair. She said, "General, it is an honor. Please, sit. There is more than enough food." General Hayes said, "Ma'am, thank you. May I?" My mother said, "Please, take Grace's chair. Grace will bring another from the sitting room." She sat him next to her, at her right, the specific position of honor that had, at every Thanksgiving from 1985 to 2018, been my father's. Neither my mother nor General Hayes spoke about the significance of that seat. Marcus stood up and shook General Hayes's hand. He said, "Sir, I am Marcus Whitmore, Grace's brother. I am an accountant. I am not military. It is an honor to meet you." General Hayes said, "Mr. Whitmore, your sister has spoken about you and your mother often. Your mother's grace before dinner tonight was, per Grace's own description of your family's tradition, exactly what she said it would be. Thank you for allowing me at your family's table." Marcus said, "Sir, you are welcome." Owen, my 8-year-old nephew, stood up from his chair without being asked. He came to attention. He said, in the specific serious voice of an 8-year-old boy who has watched every YouTube video the Army has ever posted about basic customs and courtesies. "General Hayes, sir, my name is Owen Whitmore Cole. I am 8 years old. My Aunt Grace is a captain. Are you her boss?" General Hayes stood up from his chair. He came to attention. He returned Owen's small imitation salute. He said, "Son, yes. I was your Aunt Grace's boss during her deployment to Iraq in 2018, and during her deployment to a place I cannot tell you about in 2022. She was, both times, one of the finest officers I have ever commanded. Do you understand what that means?" Owen said, "Sir?" "Yes, sir." General Hayes said, "Owen, it means that when you are older and you meet a woman in uniform, I want you to remember that the woman in uniform is very often the most important person in the room. Do you understand?" Owen said, "Sir, yes, sir." General Hayes sat down. Owen sat down. Vanessa, sitting across from me at the table, had not, at that point, said a word since 5:47 p.m. Patricia, Vanessa's mother, had, at that point, gone the specific pale color that women in South Carolina go when they realize they have committed a social violation in the presence of a witness they were not expecting. My mother served General Hayes a plate. General Hayes said, before he began eating, "Mrs. Whitmore, before I start, may I say something to your family?" My mother said, "General, please." General Hayes said, "Mrs. Whitmore, I want to explain to your family why I am here today, because I do not want any of you to think that a 3-star general drove 482 miles to Charleston on Thanksgiving Day for a routine social visit. That is not what happened." He looked around the table. He said, "Your daughter Grace, Captain Whitmore, invited me to spend Thanksgiving with your family because my wife Susan died on August 3rd of this year. Susan and I were married for 31 years. We did not have children. Susan was, per any measure I know how to apply, my closest friend and my best colleague and my whole life. When Susan died, Grace called me the day of the funeral. She called me the day after. She called me every Sunday for 11 weeks. She did not, in any of those phone calls, mention her own career, or her own concerns. She asked me how I was. She listened. He paused. He said, 3 weeks ago, when I told your daughter that I was planning to spend my first Thanksgiving without Susan alone in my house, your daughter said, and I am quoting her exactly, "General, I do not know if my mother has enough plates for one more, but if she does, you are welcome at our table." I told her I would come if her mother agreed. I did not know until I arrived tonight that Captain Whitmore had not told her mother I was coming, because she did not want her mother to worry about entertaining a general. That is, per any measure I know how to apply, the specific kind of woman your daughter is. He looked at my mother. He said, "Mrs. Whitmore, I am here at your Thanksgiving table because your daughter, a captain in the United States Army who is, per the classified assessments of her chain of command, tracking for promotion to major within the next 18 months, thought her mother might have room for a widower general who did not want to eat alone. That is who your daughter is." He looked at Vanessa. He said, "Ma'am, I do not believe I have had the pleasure." Vanessa said in a very small voice, "I'm Vanessa, Marcus's wife." General Hayes said, "Mrs. Cole, Marcus's wife. I want to tell you something, because I overheard, from the front hallway when I arrived, the specific sentence you were saying at this table to Captain Whitmore. I would like to speak to that sentence directly. May I?" Vanessa said, "General, please." General Hayes said, "Mrs. Cole, please let me finish. The sentence you used to describe Captain Whitmore, the specific phrase admin, and the specific phrase costume, and the specific phrase not really a soldier, is a phrase that carries a specific weight in the United States military. That weight is called stolen valor. Stolen valor, when applied by an outsider to a service member, is not simply a rude comment at a Thanksgiving table. Under 18 U.S.C. Section 704, the Stolen Valor Act of 2013, false claims about military service, even defamatory claims made against a service member, are actionable under federal civil law when they meet the specific standard of malice and public dissemination. He paused. He said, "Mrs. Cole, I do not believe your comment tonight, made only at this table, meets that federal standard. I am not going to suggest that Captain Whitmore should pursue a civil action against you. That is not my role, and that is not the reason I came here tonight. But I want you to know, because I do not believe you know, that Captain Grace Whitmore's 2022 deployment resulted in the specific classified operational contribution that, per the specific written after-action review submitted by her Joint Task Force commander, is estimated to have contributed to the protection of approximately 400 American service members currently deployed in a specific region I cannot name. Do you understand what I am telling you?" Vanessa Whitmore Cole began to cry. Not, I want to be clear about this, the specific sad crying of a woman who understood she had made a mistake. The specific shocked crying of a woman who had just heard, in a room she was still in, the sentence that ended her marriage. Patricia Whitmore Cole, Vanessa's mother, did not speak. Marcus Whitmore, my brother, set his fork down on his plate. He looked at Vanessa. He said, very quietly, "Vanessa, we're going to talk about this at home, and then you and I are going to talk about a lot of other things. After, I want to tell you what happened over the next 8 months, because it matters." Marcus and Vanessa left my mother's house at 7:47 p.m. on Thanksgiving evening. They did not stay for dessert. Owen, my 8-year-old nephew, hugged me for the specific long hug that 8-year-olds give when they have just watched something they do not fully understand but know is important. He hugged General Hayes as well. General Hayes returned the hug. Marcus filed for divorce on December 12th. He did not, per what he told me during a difficult phone call on December 15th, want to do so. He did so because, per his own words, "Grace, I have listened to Vanessa dismiss you at family gatherings for 6 years. I have let it happen because it was easier than fighting with her. On Thanksgiving, when she said what she said in front of Owen, and when I realized she had brought Patricia specifically as backup for saying it, I understood that I have been letting her raise our son in a house that treats military service as a costume. I cannot do that anymore." I said, "Marcus, are you sure?" Marcus said, "Grace, yes, I am sure. Owen is going to grow up knowing that his aunt is who Dad said she was. He is not going to grow up in the version of the family Vanessa has been building." The divorce was finalized in July. Marcus received joint physical custody of Owen. Vanessa received the house in Mount Pleasant. Patricia Whitmore Cole, Vanessa's mother, has not, per what I have heard through mutual acquaintances, seen my mother since Thanksgiving. My mother has not, per her own words in October, missed her. Owen turned 9 on the second Saturday of March. I flew home for his birthday. I wore, per Owen's specific written request that arrived at my apartment in Odenton 3 weeks earlier, my Army service dress uniform. Owen, at his birthday party, introduced me to his 4 best friends. He said, "This is my Aunt Grace. She is a captain in the United States Army. She works in a place she can't tell us about, but my grandma says everyone she works for thinks she is very good at it." His friends said, "Cool." Owen said, "Yeah." Lieutenant General Robert Hayes attended Owen's birthday party in civilian clothes. He drove down from Fairfax County in his own personal car. He brought Owen a specific book about Army Ranger history that he had, per what he told me quietly in my mother's kitchen, been given by his own father in 1974. He inscribed the book on the first page. Owen has not, per my mother's regular updates, put the book down. I want to tell you one more thing. 6 weeks after Thanksgiving, approximately 6 weeks after Vanessa Whitmore Cole said the sentence at my mother's dinner table, I received a letter from Patricia Whitmore Cole. The letter was 3 pages long. It was handwritten. It was, in the specific way of Southern women of a certain age, formally apologetic. I read the first paragraph. I did not read the rest. I placed it in a fireproof box in my apartment. Vanessa Whitmore Cole did not, at any point in the 8 months since Thanksgiving, contact me directly. She contacted me exactly one time, through her divorce attorney, to request my written statement that she had never actually said the specific phrase, "fake soldier," at the Thanksgiving table, and had said only that she believed my career was less demanding than it was portrayed. I provided my written statement. The statement I provided was, per the specific advice of the Army JAG attorney I consulted, Vanessa Whitmore Cole stated to me at approximately 5:47 p.m. on Thursday, November 28th, at 4237 Rutledge Avenue, Charleston, South Carolina, in the presence of Marcus Whitmore, Owen Whitmore Cole, Patricia Whitmore Cole, and Eleanor Whitmore, that I was, quote, not really a soldier, and that I was, quote, just an admin, and that I, quote, come home in that uniform because it makes people feel bad for you. Lieutenant General Robert Hayes, United States Army, arrived at 5:48 p.m., overheard the remainder of the exchange, and addressed the conversation directly with all present. This statement is accurate to the best of my recollection. Captain Grace Elizabeth Whitmore, U.S. Army. The statement was, per what my brother's attorney told me during the settlement proceedings, submitted into the divorce record without further comment. Vanessa's attorney did not challenge it. The divorce, in the specific term of art used by Charleston Family Court, was finalized. I still fly home to Charleston for Thanksgiving. Every year. General Hayes has, for the past 2 years, driven down from Fairfax County to spend Thanksgiving at my mother's table. My mother has, per her own tradition, seated him where my father used to sit. Neither she nor General Hayes has ever discussed the significance of that seat. I do not think they need to. If you have ever been the woman at the family table who was told that the work you did was not real work, while your uniform was hanging in the closet 3,000 miles away, I want you to leave one word in the comments below. Just one word. The name of the family member who said it, or the name of the family member who came to defend you. Say the word. Because someone in this comment section is going to see your word, and they are going to remember that the family table is a specific kind of battlefield, and that the person who defends you at that table is very often the person who has been quietly watching to protect you. And if this story reminded you that the country you served sometimes still shows up for Thanksgiving dinner, subscribe. Because next video, I am telling you about a husband who told the court I abandoned our twins for the Navy. The judge read my deployment orders. I'll see you there.